So it's been an absolute privilege to meet Mr. Neal Piper, the Executive Director of the Presidential Precinct, to have spent a few days together learning from him and the way in which he works and understands what is the mission to uplift Africa and uplift the young leaders of Africa. So we appreciate and thank you for being here with us, coming all the way from Washington, but joining us here to saying, you know what, how do we connect with young people? And this is the platform that it was initiated by an idea that you had. So please welcome and come and have a seat here. And then, of course, we've got our humanitarian and environmental activist, Catherine Constantinidis, who also traveled very far to come back home. So she was in Colombia just yesterday speaking on refugees, on human rights. So it's wonderful to have you back in South Africa. Please join us, the two of you.
So I'm excited to speak to you because I, along with Sibusiso and Lwazi, really shared a really special journey at Presidential Precinct when we were Mandela Washington Fellows. And I think sharing that journey and understanding each other in a very different way, when you have to spend nearly 12 weeks with 24 strangers on day one and you become intimately bonded by the experiences that you have together and by the journey that you walk together, the things that you learn not only about each other but about yourself during that experience is really something quite intense. So we spent our time at Presidential Precinct, and Presidential Precinct has a very, very significant motto, and that is power of place and power of ideas. And I really would like to ask you to kick off this conversation, to unpack that, because that really is an underlying pin and theme of today, especially in the power of the place that we're in.
Well, thank you so much, Catherine. It's such an honor to be here with you and to see so many bright minds coming together. And I can talk a lot about power of place, but the importance of having this dialogue here, I think, speaks volumes to the power of place. I care deeply about leadership development, specifically in investing in young people. And the Mandela Washington Fellowship, I've been fortunate to work in healthcare and worked a lot around the world and worked with a lot of government officials. I saw a lot of corruption and lack of transparency and saw how that impacted everyday people firsthand. And I have more hope than ever today about the future of the world because of leaders who have come through programs like the YALI program and other initiatives that we've been a part of. And so, in talking about power of place, and with the Presidential Precinct, we talk about three things: the power of place, the power of ideas, and also the power of friendships. And so, forgive me for sharing a little bit about the power of place through the lens of history. So the precinct was started in recognition, really, in the fact that the creation of the world's oldest representative democracy was founded in Virginia, which is about 2 hours west of Washington, D.C. in the United States. And in 1819, Thomas Jefferson, who created the Declaration of Independence, and James Madison, who authored the Constitution, and James Monroe came together and became friends and created one of the first public universities in the United States, the University of Virginia. And they became very close. They built homes within a 30-mile radius of each other and went by horseback to go to each other's homes. And they talked about democracy and rights and the roles of citizens around the world and also in the United States. And this is a time that it's really the eastern coast that was developed, and they're looking west at that point and thinking about how to create a more inclusive country. And so fast forward 200 years and the Presidential Precinct was created because of the deep relationships that were established between these three young leaders. And today, leaders draw on inspiration in these sites, like Leaders Draw on Inspiration here, through the modern day sites that represent these 3 founding presidents, including 3 presidential homes, Monticello, Montpelier, Highland, 2 public universities, the University of Virginia College of William & Mary, and then the home of the first diplomat, William Schwartz. There's about 10,000 acres of property that leaders experience. And so shifting to the power of ideas, we exist because we truly believe that leaders can create, more thriving, just, and free societies around the world. And so we commit to leaders long-term and make long-term investments in rising heads of states and prime ministers and entrepreneurs and civil society leaders who have a vision to address the key challenges that are existing in the communities. These are not the leaders who are standing on the sidelines and saying, why is this happening? They're figuring out the solutions and the ideas to move this forward. And so through programs like the Mandela Washington Fellowship, in partnership with the Department of State, is leaders are staying at the home of James Madison, where the Constitution was drafted. And they're talking about constitutional issues that are taking place in their own countries, and what's working, what's not working. And they're not there to learn necessarily about the U.S. Constitution, but just drawing on inspiration of being in the location. And there's something to be said about just stepping away from one's own environment. We all get very busy, whether you're a young student and you're preparing for a test, or you're in the business world, or running an organization. You get caught up in the moment. And it's so important to just invest in yourself. And what we find is that many of these leaders who are coming through, they have a life plan. They're thinking about where they want to be in 20 years, and 15, and 10, and 5. They're thinking about the future of their country and the change they want to see in that country. And they're investing in that plan. And so when leaders step away, whether it's here or coming to a place like the Presidential Precinct, and bringing leaders from around the world or from different regions together, there's power in that, because you're getting out of your comfort zone. You're talking to people from different religions and different backgrounds and experiences. And there's so much power in those ideas that are shared when really talented, visionary leaders come together. And so moving to kind of really the power of friendships is it's important as you go through programs or fellowships or initiatives, or whether it's students that you met in primary school, to stay connected and to find mentors that will invest in you no matter what stage you're in, to invest in others and serving as mentors, but staying connected and keeping networks together. And that was something that we found that was really important in the beginning, is to create a digital network, since we work globally in a safe and secure place for young leaders to continue to work together, just as in the founding of the U.S., these 3 young leaders built very deep long-term relationships. We hope to build deep long-term relationships with leaders globally, so that as you're going back to invest in a community, you can share with others from another country or another community about best practices, what's working, the challenges that you're having and facing. Because as leaders, as you know, you're going to face a lot of challenges. You're going to have a lot of failures, and it's key to have a really good support system to overcome those failures. And I think one of the things for me that's been so meaningful is that we have this big family of amazing leaders like you that we're staying connected with. I have on my Facebook, I have a group that has all the alum who have come through our programs. We have about 800 alum from 140 countries, and I can just follow the work of our alum. We have several alum that are here today, and And it's such an honor to be able to see the work of our family. And like any family member, you have a lot of pride in that family. And I must admit that when I see the work that you're doing, Kathryn, you know, my world lights up and our whole family because it's so extraordinary. I don't know when you sleep at night. In fact, I mean, just 48 hours ago, you were in 24 hours ago in Colombia, and then you were on a world stage talking to thousands of global leaders. And I think one of the things that you do so well is you represent South Africa wherever you go, and so you bring that pride to the next generation of leaders, and you continue to invest both at home and around the world. But I would love to just kind of hear from you in terms of, for those who don't know about all the great work you're doing as a humanitarian and a activist in climate and all the great organizations you're a part of, to share a little bit about you know, your leadership, your road to leadership, and kind of talk a little bit more about the work that you're doing.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you for what you shared. I think that really does give us a context to Presidential Precinct, but also I think every one of us can really relate to those three spaces: friendship, place, and ideas. And I think it's when those all intersect that the magic, as we so say, happens. I would also just like to say, picking up from something that you mentioned, as well as one of our previous panelists. It is not really only about sharing the successes, sharing what it is that you do that works where you are, but also sharing the lessons in those things that didn't work. We would look at things and think they're failure, but it's really the lessons that we can take out of those things. And so often it's really sharing those lessons of where you have failed, where you stumbled, that can also be more powerful to assist someone else on their journey. So I really encourage people, when they share their journeys and all those kinds of things, to share the lessons of those things that were most difficult, because sometimes the other person listening to you will draw more from that space because they may find themselves in some way within that space. My leadership journey really also started, I think Bongi and I would relate, because it would go back to school. And I relate to the role of leadership through many of the platforms I was given at school, or many of the platforms that I stepped up to the plate for. And it really was something that came very naturally. But I think it's really how you invest in yourself. Something else you said, how do you invest in yourself and continue challenging yourself to be better, to be challenged by the spaces that you occupy? How do you constantly be on a journey of learning, of growing? And those are the things that, for me, you have to remind yourself of constantly, because sometimes we do get stuck in our daily routine, the things we're trying to get done, the many objectives of to-do lists and lists of to-do lists that we're trying to tick from, and we really forget that aside from those things that we have to achieve on a daily basis, we also have to continually grow ourselves as leaders. I look at this room and I look at our Generation Earth Council members, I look at our ambassadors from the Miss Earth South Africa Leadership Program, and I'm inspired by the fact that our journey has allowed us to really impact the journey of others, and in return they go out into communities and impact their communities. It's really about the grassroots level impact that we can have, and the long-term sustainable impact we can have on specifically young women and young leaders, as they invest within their future and planting those seeds of leadership, of growth, of opportunity, of challenging themselves on a daily basis, not only in the work that they do, but within their personal lives as well. I also think that, looking back at the journey, I look at Margot, and I remember about 2 months ago thinking, it is amazing that Ella and myself have had a journey where we can open the door, and I don't just get to travel, but we've allowed an opportunity for other people to travel to different parts of the world as well. And I really appreciate the fact that we have been able to work with amazing partners who allow us the space to do what we do. And it's that kind of friendship link again. We have had the opportunity to do the work we do only because of the strength of the partnerships that we have invested in. Our partnership with Tsogo-san, I think of the work that we do with SANBI as well, the South African National Biodiversity Institute, and the kinds of work that we are doing is only because of the partnerships. And it's really a collaborative effort in order to talk to the bigger goal and vision. And often we think that we have to carry the load on our own. And I think a part of my own leadership journey has been to let go and to allow people to work with you. It will not be exactly what you may have thought it would be, but you have to at some point let go. And I think unfortunately when you're a perfectionist and those character traits run very deep in you, it's a great challenge because you want to have something done exactly how you would have done it, but you have to learn that different cooks will make the same soup in a different way, and you have to allow them to do that because the soup will be delicious, just a different kind of delicious. So I think that for me has really been an important journey because sometimes you think you have to do everything, and it takes a lot to get to a point where it's okay to let go and to learn to share the load with those that share in the vision. And that's something that we can all take away from in no matter what, what space or industry we're in. I think that's really, really important. The other thing I really want to say is that as a South African, I'm proud to represent our country wherever I go. And it is an honor to share the journey that we have had as a country. As a young South African, I look back at the history, and it was mentioned in the panel before, but it is important for us to never forget where we have come from, because it is only then that we can build the future moving forward, looking to a vision that we can all aspire to and move towards working together. And I think being in this place for me today, whenever I come to the Apartheid Museum, it is a very deep and painful reminder of where we come from. But it is also a beautiful memory or a beautiful moment to create a memory that reminds us that from this dark and evil past that we come from, we can actually succeed as a nation. Look at where we are today. No one says that we're without our challenges, but the entire world is riddled with challenges. No matter which country, how long their democracy has been in existence for, and I'm so proud to come from South Africa. I'm so proud to be able to share who we are as a people, but also be alive to the fact that the pain and scars of our history still live with us today. And we have to take responsibility for that pain of our past in order to mend and move forward. But what I think is a beautiful thing as South Africans, we so often think that, well, it's almost 25 years into our young democracy, things should be perfect. But there really is no place that is perfect. We must embrace who we are. We must be proud of who we are as a nation and what the forefathers of our democracy have given to us. And what they have given to us is a responsibility and a baton to move our country forward, to never forget what sacrifices were made by so many of our people and how many lives were lost, but also the sacrifice for us to move freedom, justice, democracy, human rights, and justice forward in a way that as young people, we must remember the dreams and visions of the great leaders that came before us. And today, here in this room, we are represented by two organizations and foundations that carry the memory and the values of two of our greatest leaders, and that was Nelson Mandela and Kathrada, and two great men that we stand on the shoulders of. And as young leaders, we must always remember that we have a responsibility to keep their legacies alive through the values that we emanate every single day, through the most basic actions of our daily life, through seeing the man at the robot that you drive past every single day. How many of us know his name? How many of us know where he lives? It is the basic things we do when we complain about the things that don't work, instead of understanding how to report them, how to be a part of the solution that actually does exist within a system. But if we don't plug into the system, it will never work for us. or with us. It's really readdressing the kinds of thoughts that we have on a daily basis. It's around a coffee table or a dinner table over a weekend where conversations come up that you feel uncomfortable about, but you say nothing, instead of standing up for what it is that you truly believe in. It's about standing up and leaving a room when you are not inspired by the kind of conversation that's supposed to move us forward. And those are the things that really, really matter. I was here the last time I was mentioning to Neal, I was actually at the Apartheid Museum at the launch of National Racism Week earlier this year. And we went around to a few schools together. I joined the foundation and we went around. I'm a proud ambassador of that program and will continue to do what I can to support the Kathrada Foundation, because the work that they do is incredibly important, and we have to ensure that we never forget where we come from. And I emphasize this because often people say we really shouldn't dwell on our history, but as young people we must remember that we must always acknowledge where we come from so that we can really move together in a powerful way, moving forward towards a vision that we can all be a part of. And as a young leader, I'm honored to be able to walk a journey that when I look back, I don't just look back at the journey I've walked, but I look back at a legacy of young leaders that are walking behind me.
Well, I will just close by providing three things to take away. One is create a life plan for yourself. Envision where you want to be over the next 10, 15 years, whether it's going from secondary school to going to college or starting a new NGO or a business that's tackling a big challenge. And, I always say that, if you aim for the stars and you get halfway there, you can land on the moon. And so think big when you're thinking about your vision and where you want to be. Second is, we talked about earlier, is to find a mentor that you would like to emulate and work with that person. And that person will be there to walk through, the challenges and help you think through opportunities for your future. And at the same time, mentor others, folks that are a little bit younger than you. Find someone and offer to be a mentor to someone, and it's amazing how much you will grow personally as a result. And third, hold yourself to a value system. Build a value system for yourself and live that out, whether it's about integrity and doing the right thing when no one's looking, to having humility and always learning and not thinking you're the smartest person in the room, but you can learn something from everyone that you're in the room with. And then third, something I hold myself is, acts of service. So thinking about ways that you can continue to give back in your community and lead that front and bring others along with you. So Catherine, it's such an honor to hear more about your story. We're so proud of all the work that you're doing, and it's an honor to be with all of you today. Thank you so much for having us.